Hello there, my name is Nosa Ajayi. I mentioned during my last posting I shall talk some more about the Benin monarchy, precisely prehistoric Benin. Scholars of Benin history are usually very silent on prehistoric Benin, especially between the 8th century and the 11th century, during which period the Ogisos ruled. Who were the Ogisos? Or what's the meaning of Ogiso? Ogiso simply means kings of the sky. What does that mean? Well, myth has it that some five brothers were getting ready to leave heaven for earth, and the Lord was going to grant them whatever their hearts desired. Some chose magical skills, some chose wealth, and the youngest of the brothers chose a snail shell. Upon arriving earth full of water, a bird whispered in the ears of the youngest of the brothers, told him to turn his snail shell upside down. When he complied, sand tumbled out of the snail shell and formed land, with a vast expanse of land, which is actually Benin Kingdom. Well, like I told you, it's a myth. But anyway, the Ogisos ruled for 300 years, and the last 100-year rule of the Ogisos was by way of primogeniture. And the very last Ogiso was Ogiso Owodo. He actually ended the Ogiso dynasty. Now, Ogiso Owodo had only one son, whose name was Ikaladera. So there was actually no problem with who was going to succeed him. However, he had several wives, only one child, so it was a source of concern for the kingdom. So himself and his chiefs had several meetings, and during one of their sessions, it was agreed that they needed to consult the oracle who lived in the hinterland. And so messengers were assembled and were given the nature of the assignment. As they were getting ready to leave, one of the king's wives, Isiago, troublemaker, she never got along with the other wives. She was just, put simply, she was bad to the bone. Major issues she used to cause in the harem. And so she asked the king if she could accompany the messengers to visit the oracle. And the king acquiesced, waved her off lazily. There were more important matters to discuss with his chiefs, and so they set on the journey. Isiago was she was just chatty, full of gossip about the harem, about the other wives, and they were surprised because it was generally believed that whatever happened in the harem stays in the harem. Here was Isiago spilling the beans, but of course they themselves were more than glad to, give her plenty of attention. And so anyway, when they arrived at the shrine, they were made comfortable, and the oracle, sat before them and told them that he had a message from the king. He didn't even allow them to say what they were there for, because he waved the leader of the group to silence and said, "I know what you're here for. Tell the king if he wants the womb of his wives to open, one of the wives has to be sacrificed." He stopped there, and then looked at the, cowrie shells and other things that are related to his trade, and he looked up again and said, precisely, Isiago. With that, he dismissed them. Isiago, that was all chatty on their way to the oracle, was as cool as a cucumber on their way back. And they were wondering what to make of this. Halfway through, it started to rain heavily. Before they knew it, Isiago started to strip. She was taking off her clothes, and they quickly bowed their heads to the ground, because to cast your eyes on the nakedness of a queen is instant death. so they all knew what this meant. And so, queen, what are you doing? Their heads bowed to the ground. And she told them, no problem. If you want your lives to be spared, tell the king that the oracle said for him to sacrifice his only child, the sole heir to his throne, the Kaladera. Anything contrary, be ready to pay with your lives. And so when they got to the palace, they had no choice but to tell the king. And it was a massive blow for the king. It's a sick joke. Okay. He just couldn't imagine killing his only child. it was a costly undertaking. So he had several meetings with his chiefs, and they were kind of divided. Some said, well, they reminded him that the oracle had never been wrong, so they don't think it's that much of a big deal, to sacrifice one child. At least you'll be comforted with several other children that will come based on what the oracle says. Then the other group say, it's too costly a gamble. What if it didn't work? And then what if not? Anyway, so the king was confused, and making a decision was very, very difficult. So on this particular day, he was seated under a mango tree in his courtyard. Seated next to him was the beauty, the paragon of the city. She was ebony black, enchanting smile with eyes that sparkle like diamonds in the sun. Understandably too, she was the cynosure of Ogiso Wodo's eyes. And so, and most importantly too, her presence always had a calming effect on Ogiso Wodo. But on this particular day, no matter how much he tried, no matter how much she herself tried, his mind was in turmoil. The wife tentatively placed a sculptured hand on his thighs, and Ogiso Wodo put his hand on hers, squeezed her hand reassuringly, smiled at her, and she saw it was nothing but an empty smile. And when she looked into the eyes of her king, she just knew that the smile belied the truth, the true state of his mind. He was deeply troubled. And before you knew it, she snatched her hands away, jumped up like as if she was bitten by a snake, and scurried away. And the king was like, she scampered like something was very much after her life. And the king was wondering, what's up? And when he looked up, behold, Esiago was coming from the opposite direction. No wonder, he said, here comes trouble, he muttered. And Esiago came looking, she seemed nonplussed. She had a nonchalant attitude about her. She was smiling mischievously. She sat next to the king. She was holding a keg of palm wine, and cradled to her bosom was a calabash full of the king's favorite snacks, peppered snail and salted meat. She sat next to the king, and the king muttered under his breath, bye-bye beauty, welcome trouble. So she made to pour the king a calabash of wine, and while she was doing that, the king was just playing back all the things that were responsible for his state of mind, especially the way he was feeling was exacerbated by Isiago's nagging that was ringing in his ears. What's wrong with you? Are you no longer the king? Don't you want to see me carry my own child? What's the big deal? It's not just one child. Don't you want to like to see the other wives carrying their babies? When did you become a woman? I thought you had the power over life and death. You're no longer the king. She had been nagging for all this while, So anyway, so the king just, when she made to open her mouth to say something, he just stopped her, got up, raised up his hand for silence, and got up, had one of his servants nearby to assemble his chiefs. When they arrived, he told them that his mind was made up, that a Caladera had to be sacrificed. There was a hushed silence. It was like an ominous silence. And it seemed like they were enveloped by nothing but darkness, to kill a Caladera. Anyway, so executioners were assembled, and they were given strict instructions, and the king said, make it as quick and as painless as possible. How painless it's going to be, that's another issue entirely. And even they were surprised, the executioners, they were like, Caladera, what's happening here? But again, orders are orders. And so Caladera was sent for. Caladera pranced in, like he owned the place, a gangly youth, with a princely bearing, So the king told his son very quietly, tenderly, that he was to accompany these men on a matter that was of importance to the state. After all, he was going to be a king someday, and so, and he even jokingly asked his father, why am I not carrying a weapon like them? And the father just waved him off, the way you would a naughty child. And then they went on their journey. Caladera was, he told himself, he had to make a mental note to discuss with his father when he gets back, because he had never he couldn't remember ever seeing his father in such a grave mood. He was looking extremely depressed. Even the kings that was always, the chiefs that were always teasing him, whenever they saw him, telling him he was growing too big. Very soon he said he would be bigger than the crown. They themselves were in a somber mood. So something was not quite right. Anyway, so they went on, and several months later, they found themselves in the outskirts of Benin. And the messengers, the would-be executioners, told the Caledonian, just hold on. Listen very carefully. He saw there was a change in their mood, and he found it a little bit scary. You know, it was disconcerting. What could it be? And they told him, your daddy, did I say daddy? Prehistoric Benin daddy, they don't mix. Again, this is my creative license. I'm taking it a little bit too far. Anyway, I meant father. So he told him, your father has told us and gave us strict instructions to have you killed. It's not his fault. The oracle told him so. He was extremely hesitant. He even regrets it. And he was trying to run away, and he grabbed him and said, relax, we're not going to kill you. We have decided we cannot afford to have the innocent blood of a child in our hands. So they took a piece of his clothing, gave it some food, a little from their ration that will perhaps, he will survive on for the next few days. But he had to live with very strict instructions. And he said he must never return to the Benin kingdom. So the Caledonian was happy to leave them. He dashed away just so they wouldn't change their minds. And as he was leaving, he was cursing. He cursed his father, he cursed his mother for not having more children. He cursed the other wives for not having children of their own. He cursed the chiefs for allowing his father to contemplate something so dastardly. He was just cursing and cursing. And on the other hand, the supposed executioners returned to the palace, and when they saw the blood-stained clothing, because they had killed an animal and smeared with the blood of an animal. So they presented the blood-stained piece of clothing for a Caledonian as proof that mission was accomplished. One look at it, it was just like, oh my goodness, no going back. Why did I allow myself to succumb to something that's completely irreversible? So he left, took leave of them and gave strict instructions not to be disturbed. So he went into his private chambers to mourn his son. After several months, he had to snap out of it and get busy with his wives. But unfortunately, nothing happened. So Ogiso died without an heir, or died of a broken heart. On the other hand, there was a Caledonian who was wandering in the bush, wandered for several moons, and then found himself in a town. And he was surprised because all his life, there had never been mention of other people living outside of the Benin kingdom, because at that time all the kingdoms were autonomous. They never mixed with each other. All they knew were themselves. And so who are these people? So they were very nice to him. They took to him. He took to them. They were very accommodating. And so anyway, he made a home there. And I asked him for his name. He said his name was Izodua. And that's it. After Ogiso's passing, after he had joined his ancestors, there was a period of interregnum. Some say it took about 50 years, the throne was empty. Some said 75 years. So maybe 1150 or 1170 before the Oba dynasty was instituted. We'll talk some more about that in my next posting. My name is Nosa Ajayi.